I would say I'm a little bit nervous in the fact that we're facing some deficits still that have not been corrected. We've negotiated a lot of contracts that have cost the city a lot of money, and for that I'm thankful that the employees are going to be compensated for the work that they perform. Still nervous, making sure that we're going to cover the bottom line and to keep the city moving forward. I'm encouraged by some of the numbers that I've seen. Some of the crime stats are coming down. I'm encouraged that we have adequate public safety coverage from our police department. They're putting more officers out on the street. A little bit anxious with the property tax assessments that are going to go through the county, asking for a moratorium. I think that could have a severe impact on our city's budget bottom line. So I'm hopeful that they're able to get that established and make some headway. The one thing that that caught my eye, and I know we tend to go with what we're familiar with. We tend to stay in our comfort zone. I read the budget address before the delivery, and then I listened to the delivery, and I hear a lot of positive news coming from a specific geographical region in our city, which is downtown and the riverfront. There's more to our city, and I would encourage the mayor to visit the rest of our city and become intimately familiar with the rest of our city, because those folks also need to see some revitalization, some development, some job creation, some neighborhood stabilization, some grant funding, things of that nature. So that's my one concern. I'm optimistic. We don't have line item veto. There are some things in the budget that I'm not prepared to say yes to. So I hope that there's some negotiations that are going to take place. I'm going to go into this project with an open mind and allow the departments to tell us why they need the funding that they need. Very thankful that we didn't lose any more firemen this time around. I think the fire department is cut beyond to the bone. I'm hoping that since the mayor is going to increase the number of L&I officials, which I think is desperately needed, in the future we look at increasing the fire department back up to a staffing level where we're not shutting down an engine company on a routine basis and putting our citizens in jeopardy.
I thought the mayor did a great job. He laid out, his format in reference to housing, crime, and the parks. I thought he covered everything. I was especially interested in the landlords with the housing and plight bill, and especially interested in Eaton Park, and he covered that tonight. I have, in the 3rd District, we have a lot of vacant properties, and we have a lot of slum landlords. So that's one of my major issues. So I'm very interested in the pre-inspections. Been a big pet peeve of mine. And also, as far as the parks, a lot of us were interested in Eaton Park for years. I was very interested in that even when Theo was trying to implement the Eaton Park. I just think it's the largest facility to develop a football field. It just has the space over there. It just makes more sense to me. I know they were considering some work for Kirkwood Street Park, and I would love for Kirkwood Street Park to be rebuilt because that's in the 3rd District. But it's not suitable for the things like, as far as the football field. I just think Eaton Park, it just has the space, it has the parking, and it's not much over there besides a lot of property where they can, parking is just excellent over there. And I grew up over there, so I know that park is bigger than it even looks. So if they invested in that park, I think it would be excellent for as a practice for football, baseball, and the pool is right there. I've read over his script, and he really covered everything. I spoke to a couple council members afterwards. Everybody seemed pretty pleased. And also I'm especially pleased with the lighting, the LDC lighting. I'm really especially pet peeve for Pricey's Park. We need some lights over there, and I've spoken to him about it and spoken to the president about it. So over in that area, it's really dark. So I'm just glad he's going to light up the whole city because it's extremely dark in the nighttime riding around. And I think the lighting reduces crime. So I can see where some of the crime has been reduced. I think Chief Tracy's doing a great job. But if we had more lighting throughout the city, it would deter even more.
Well, I was a little apprehensive, I have to admit. Of course, we did get a ding, you know, with the 4% increase for the water. I'm hoping that at some point we don't have to deal with that any longer. But I was still pretty pleased with some of the things that he had brought forth, you know, especially some of the things that council were in agreement with when it comes to Eden Park. You know, making certain that we have more inspectors for L&I. You know, one of the things that he did bring up was the housing ordinance. But in order to get the housing situation straight, we have to make certain that our license inspections are up to code as well. So I think that it took some time, of course, for us to get to this point, and it's going to take us just a little bit more to get out of it. So I hope he's as patient with council as we are trying to be with him. I had already heard about that we want to do some renovations to our fire stations, which is actually good. I've been to the fire stations. I've had to do a few, especially the ones that are directly surrounding my district. And I was amazed at the conditions of those fire stations. I was like, whoa. So I am very pleased that they're going to be upgrading them. You know, these men and women, they are there for us, and you know that was actually one of the big issues that I had with the budget last year. You know that I sometimes feel like we don't support them as we should. So I'm glad that they're going to get what they deserve when it comes to a workstation, a workplace that looks nice and comfortable while they're. I dread the bell, but you know, when the bell goes off, they're there for us. Because of the fact that this is just the second one, I know now more so what I'm looking for when it comes to the budget hearings. So get the chance to ask the important questions and go line by line. Some of the things that our council people have brought up just recently was the fact that we're not really sticking to the budget like we need to. So we want to make certain that they have a better eye on what they're asking for so that they can actually stick to it. And if they need to, because we all do sometimes need to move money around, just to make certain that they're making us aware and not way down the line.
Actually, I was excited to hear some of the things I heard this evening. Doing rental inspections, I think, is extremely important. That certainly will help housing and rental properties out here in the city. For us to have abandoned that 10 years ago was ridiculous. I don't think it's as high a mountain as the mayor said. He said 17,000 units. I believe about 7,200 of those are with WHA, which is already inspected each year by federal inspectors. So I think it's quite doable. L&I director Jeff Starkey was before us a few months back and said that each inspection is about 30-45 minutes long. And so I think we can certainly hire enough inspectors to make that happen on an annual basis. So when you pay your rental dwelling fee, you get inspected. And I think that's important. If the inspection costs more than $100, if it costs $125, $150, well, let's charge $125, $150. But we definitely need to get that done. Absolutely. Again, I think we need to make strides with implementing some of the recommendations from the CDC report, to leave that solely to the state. That's, we have something in Wilmington here called paralysis by finger pointing. Okay, everybody loves to point to somebody else to get something done, but nobody ever seems to take the initiative to move forward with that. But I would say that that's the only negative with regard to that. As far as changing the housing, the blight and vacant ordinances, I had made some suggestions 3-4 months ago with regard to that, what needs to change. I don't think he's going to go as far that way, but hopefully we can get some compromise in the middle to make us happy with that. There are some things with regard to that, the mechanics of it and things like that needs to change. I was surprised by the size of the budget, 162 million. I actually expected him to come in at about 155. We were at 155 last year, and so I expected to be right around the same this year. To be truthful with you, I haven't reviewed it enough in detail in order to comment on that, but I was surprised by the overall number. Yes, I was. I think what we got to do is we got to adhere to a budget. A budget is a plan, like you said, and we got to make sure that we spend accordingly and make that happen. I think that the taxpayers expect us to do that. As far as the capital budget, hopefully we'll get much more transparency with that. As you know, we have 29 million coming forward from prior years, so I don't think we will have to go out to bonding for as much money as we think that our bonding should be probably between 30 and 35 million versus the 43 million that was originally suggested. So I think that we can accomplish a lot by spending what we have. It isn't so much the spend factor with that. To understand we have money left over from 1998, 2002, 2004, and to see things like our parks where they're in need of dilapidated and help, Hicks Anderson Center. To understand that we've been sitting on that amount of money that long, crying poor that we can't fix it, but yet it was there. There's accountability doesn't seem to be a word known here in the city of Wilmington. That's we can't really blame this mayor for that. He's only been there in a year. Hopefully, the new treasurer pointed that out. So we'd certainly like to commend her for her diligence with hiring a debt manager and things of that nature. So hopefully we can put it all together and work together as a team and bring everything forward now. So, I'm looking forward to it.
So I definitely liked what I heard. There are some pieces that I'm a little still want to find out some more detail on, which is kind of like the 4% water sewer tax, especially because we taxed last year as well. But I do love the fact that Eden Park was one of the huge wins, which we pushed for, City Council for, and I love the crime decreases also was a huge highlight for me also, and then as well as the housing piece as well. So we all know there's an issue with housing, renters as occupied properties as well as vacants. And we want to be sensitive to that too, because we also live in the communities also. And we're living next door, to some of these things that are happening in our backyards as well. So we want to make sure that, we all know it's an issue that we want to address. We just want to make sure it's done with tender love and care as much as possible to the most affected population by, us putting together an ordinance in that capacity. I wouldn't say there was anything that was missing per se, but I am just now interested in the details of, how everything came up as far as what we wanted to change and not change. Even for some of the decreases that in some of our departments also, that probably would have been one of the ones that I probably would have liked to hear a little bit more about, how we're making some changes department-wise as far as decreases as far as monies go. And then I probably want to, now I think about it, probably one of the main ones would probably be how are we bringing in new revenue, which is something that we definitely need for the city of Wilmington. So I am looking forward to figuring out some ways with my other council colleagues to figure out how we can make that happen. So Southbridge is kind of like my baby, because that's where I started when I was first doing community development work. And to see over the years of it changing since 2009 when I've been there, and now to be able to say we have Eden Park that is actually going to be a huge entity that's going to help out with, also how the community looks, how that they feel invested in. And I think over the years, Southbridge has kind of felt like they've been, lost on the side. And now they have something that they can be totally proud of, as well as all the different teams that use the fields. Now they have something to really look forward to when they come there. I still think there's some things that we would probably like to see as far as council be added to it before we say we sign on the dotted line to say that it will pass. But I think there's definitely opportunity for us to do something and add some incentives to the city as well, other than penalties. So I'm excited to kind of see where we're able to compromise and add some different components to the budget.
I was impressed mainly that the mayor and his administration heard from council, that they heard our concerns and suggestions, recommendations, and incorporated that into his 2019 budget. That was very impressive to me. I think the things that he expressed, like the housing revitalization plan, and especially Eden Park for our youth, was a home run. There are a lot of things that he mentioned. We're anxious to see the amended blight legislation that he mentioned. We're anxious to see what those amendments are, because we too are anxious to get that moving. We know that in order to revitalize our neighborhoods, we need to put that into effect. So I think once we get that done, we're going to see great progress of addressing the substandard housing in our neighborhoods. I think that's going to be a great win for both council and administration. I think that we're going in the right direction. We're making sure that our young people have a recreational outlet and a nice field to play and do athletic practices, and addressing the housing stock is very important. You know, making sure that our families and communities have a well-maintained home, and the fact of the program that he was talking about that will allow people to buy homes. You know, going from rental to home ownership is a great lift in anyone's life standard, and I see that as a great way of bringing equity and decreasing the amount of low-income residents in our neighborhood to become now homeowners, which is equity and brings wealth. I think it definitely is focusing on the neighborhoods. It has, I mean, I don't think you mentioned anything about anything going to the riverfront or the downtown area. We have given a lot of attention to that, and we had to, because that's the core and the base of our economy here in the city. But our neighborhoods is where the heart and the people live, and so now giving full attention to our neighborhoods, I think, is a good direction. I hope that our residents are appreciative of it and cooperative, because we could put programs in place, but if our residents don't take advantage of those programs, it's for naught. And so some of it's going to be a heavy hammer on them because of us trying to do the license and inspection enforcement, which is necessary. But I think the result of it is going to be more beautiful, safe, and viable neighborhoods that everyone could be proud to live in. Well, on the City Council's website, there is a link for residents to follow along with us with seeing all the budget and budget line information, as well as the questions that were being put forth to all the departments. We're asking residents to get involved, get engaged. There is a way on the website for them to send us questions. We won't necessarily answer it back, but we'll take those questions and points of views into consideration as we present questions to the department heads. So this is a very open and engaged and involved and inclusive process, but it's only as inclusive as the residents get involved. So we encourage them to participate, come sit in the hearings and hear it for themselves, the dialogue, the information, and help us to make sure that we ask the right questions that is going to satisfy the things that's going to bring them a good quality of life.